Welcome back to Jessica's Craft Time. My name's Jessica, and we are starting on a new miniature house. This one's completely different to anything that I've built before. It has like this plywood house that you construct, and then you build all the little bits and pieces for inside it. This is one that I've been putting off building for a long time. The reason why is the instructions were very hard to read. Hubby finally stepped in and he's like, well, contact the seller. I contacted them and they sent me some English instructions, which is going to make it a bit easier. I'm just going through all the bits and pieces here, having a quick look to see what I've got. But I'm just checking off. It does have an inventory sheet, an inventory table that gives you a brief description on what what the pieces should be. Now this was B and I pulled it all out and then I realized there must be another B because this is B for like paper and wires and beads. So it does have like an inventory sheet and it does say, whether the wood is painted or cream or original, I think the wording says on it. So we packed all this back up and we started again. Compared to the other ones I've done, this has been a little bit more of a difficult challenge, just because the instructions aren't as clear as I'm used to. If I had done it this way first, then maybe it might have worked. Now with this one, I ended up getting a grey lead pencil and just writing what the piece was on them. So I was measuring the pieces to see which one goes where. So at least I had the measurements on them, I was able to work out which piece was which. But it's definitely been a challenge, but we'll get there. We'll make it happen. It's just going to be, I think, a bit of a slower process than ones in the past. I also then had a look on the inventory sheet there and realized that all the bits of wood needed to be original or whatever the wording was, which meant that they're just like the raw wood that's not painted. So I packed up all the other pieces and it gave me less to choose from, which made it a bit easier. So we're building a little like flower stand here. They do have wording, but it's just not, I don't know. I think I just follow better from diagrams rather than the words, and the diagrams weren't overly clear to me. So we're using our fast grab tacky glue, and I'm just putting some on a patty pan or cupcake case with my toothpick there. And this is the kind of glue that I use for putting wood bits together. I find it's a little bit tackier, being tacky glue, than PVA, so it holds the pieces together a little bit better. Now here I'm trying to work out what is this piece, and then I'm like, they're the bits that you have to cut out. I still don't know now whether I put it in the right spot. I cut them out and I still had a bit of trouble. So whether it's in the right spot or not, I don't know. I didn't end up putting it on until the end. We'll see what happens, basically. So I'm just going to grab my little guillotine here out. This is a limited edition item from Stampin' Up, but I'm sure you can get them elsewhere. I find it really, really handy when I need to do straight edges for a larger piece of paper. I cut as straight as I can, but can't always cut perfect. So I'm just trying to find out where this other piece goes. And something like this that's a wooden construction is my favorite to put together, and normally I would have whizzed past this. You're watching this at 2.5 speeds, so this whole thing that I did took over an hour to do, and normally I would have completed more thing. So I'm just looking on the box there to see where it goes, to see if I can work out where the bit of paper goes, but nah. So we're going to construct the back of it, put that off to the side, come back to it. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of that with this, putting things off to the side and coming back. So I'm just trying to work out which pieces go where. On this, I still don't know if I got them all glued the right spot, but we'll work it out. And then I'm like, oh, if I glue this here, it's going to stick to my paper. So I just went and got myself a baggie. These are just leftover baggies, all my baggies from my miniature rooms, from everything I keep in a drawer. So I've just grabbed a baggie, just so I've got a little bit of plastic. It'll peel off the glue better if the glue dries to it. And it means that I can move it around, because this is not a solid piece while you're trying to glue it together. So there's like a diamond in the middle of it, and I was trying to work out whether I glue the diamond together and then glue it on, or I try and put it on top of it. And gluing it together first was not an option. So I'm like, right, we're going to glue pieces onto the wood here, because some of them are touching, some are floating. Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. I think I got it enough that it will stick together and stay now that it's dry. But we'll wait and see what happens. And I'm like, where does this piece go? Okay, let's put some glue here, here, and here, and hopefully this will hold it all together. I love my toothpicks. I find them really handy for transferring glue onto spots. Alright. The next piece has to be put on the front of it. This is the back of it. So guess what? Off to the side to dry, and let's start the next piece. So the next bit that we're going to be building is like a hall table, and this time I've learnt, have a look to see what colour the pieces of wood we need are, and put everything else back in the bag. That way you're not trying to dig through the extra bits, and you can work out. I didn't want to write on these because I knew they'd be able to be seen a little bit better. I did start writing on them, and then I'm like, I actually don't like that idea. And as it was, the one piece I wrote on, I end up pasting with the B up. So what I got, I'm just laying them out again, trying to work out which piece is which. But then I'm like, hang on, if I put a bit of paper on the table or a post-it note, I can write next to it what they are without writing on the actual piece, which is what I'm doing here. So now I know what all my pieces are. The only other piece I need is a bit of fabric, which I did later. I did completely later. And I'm pretty sure here the pieces were back the front. So what it said was one piece was another. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work. It has to be the smaller legs with the smaller bit and the larger piece with the larger legs. So I thought the legs had to go in a little bit. That's the way that I would do a table. But this table is strange. It has multi-layers, and I could not for the life of me work out how it goes together. It's round about this point somewhere that hubby thuds on the garage door. Got the fright of my life. He scared the hell out of me. I'd locked the screen door, and we don't have a key to our screen door, so he couldn't get in, and he'd come home from work early. And yeah, nah. And I'm trying to work out, how does this piece go in the middle? I can't. It's slightly too big. If I put the legs all the way to the edge, it's still too big. It like bows the legs out. It can't go on the inside because there's not enough space. It was really, really baffling me. So, and you had to get it in the right spot, because the middle shelf connects to the side table, which then the whole bit comes together with one long piece. But it just wasn't working for me. I fiddled and I played and I fiddled and I played, and hubby came home and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I just can't work it out." I went away, I came back. I'm like, "Right, that's how it goes together. Let's glue that together." Because then I'm like, I've got to measure it so it's the right spot. And every time I put it in, it would bow the legs out. I tried gluing it. In the end, I didn't put the shelves in. I just give up on the paper, and I didn't put the shelves in. I've kept it with the piece, but I figured if I really need them later on, excuse me, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do this narration first thing in the morning. Um, I figured if I need them later on, I'm gonna have to sand the sides back because no matter what I did, it just wouldn't work. It just kept bowing all the legs. It wasn't quite long enough. And it was really frustrating me. And then I'm like, hey, this is your own work. You don't have to have it perfect. No one's going to know that it needs to have another shelf on it. You can do what you like with it. You don't have to follow the instructions. So that's what I've done. I've made it so it's a 2-tier set of shelves without the extra shelves in it when it glues together. And we're done. Yeah, another thing. Onto my green boat. Those green boats are a lifesaver. I'm just wiping all the glue off the pieces just so they're not too sticky and they don't have extra bumps on them that we don't need. So I just write give up on the paper and whatever, we'll go back to the other one. At this time, this has had a bit of a chance to dry, so it's a little bit more solid. And sometimes you do need to place bits on, walk away, and come back. But if you're doing it, make sure you don't have any other pieces that need to fit into it that you need to make slight adjustments. So we're just going to put the paper, because it looks like on the instruction that the smaller bit of paper goes on the back. It basically lines this box at the bottom. So that's what I did with it. Whether it was meant to sit on the top of the box, I'm not sure, but it's lining the box. We put the larger piece on the bottom, the smaller piece along the back, and the box is lined. I'm guessing flowers and stuff go into it later down the track. I don't know. I don't know whether I end up using all the furniture in the house or not. I don't know. I'm really not sure. We'll just have to see how we go. So now we're going to work on doing a light. This is a little bit more fiddly work. We need a few extra tools, but your green boat is what you need, or some sort of bead tray or something to make sure you don't lose all those little pieces. Now, this is a bit of fabric I think is for the table, but I wasn't game to cut it yet because it was So I put it aside and went, I'll deal with it later. But I kept finding bits in the twine. So I'm just getting all the little bits that I need and popping them in a different tray. It is a little bit hard. I've moved the little wooden beads over, but we didn't actually need those beads. We needed the big ones. And that's where the instructions, the inventory is a little bit harder because the ones that I'm used to working with have some sort of image. They may not be true to scale, the image, but at least gives you some idea on what the piece should look like, on what sort of basic colors they are. So we needed all this wires, and they must be for the next project on the next page because I didn't end up using them all. But by the time I finish this light, I'm done for the day. I'm getting frustrated, and sometimes you need to, I find anyway, that when I start making mistakes, when I start making errors, um, or when I'm finding it really frustrating, it's time to pack it up for the day. I don't keep pushing through, because every time that I've tried to keep pushing through, I've made an even bigger mistake. And then I've had to do more fixing later down the track. I was just checking, it went all the way through, but luckily I did actually check it again once it was together, and the top um, eyelet didn't actually fit over into the lamp, so I managed to catch it before the glue had completely dried. Now, because we're working with beads and metal and wood and plastic, I've chosen to use my E6000 glue. The tweezers that I'm using come from Diamond Art Club, or you can get them in other diamond painting kits, but they're the real pointy nose tweezers. And it's funny, like, hubby does miniatures. He does Warhammer. And I happened to walk out to see he was sitting out. He's got another room in the garage too that he does his in. And I went out to check on him last night and say, hey, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And he was explaining what he was up to. He'd just finished building his army that he was doing. And he said to me, oh, these are the best things you've ever given me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, these tweezers, they're so fine and so pointy. I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good for the miniature stuff. So, yeah, don't get rid of your ones from uh, your diamond painting. The pointy nose ones are very, very handy for working with small things like this. So we've created our little lamp and then just cut the wire, and I've just used the tweezers to pick up the wire and stick it around the sides, so we get like an old-fashioned kind of lampy thing happening. One thing I would recommend with your tweezers though is make sure you clean the tip of them regularly, because if the glue builds up on them, they're useless as tweezers, because it's very, very hard to pick up pieces, because they stick to the end of your tweezers. So yet again, my baby wipes are my like go-to for everything. I just find them really easy for cleaning up out here while you're doing, wiping down your tools, your scissors, your tweezers, your hands, your table, everything. So we're just cutting some more wire here. And we need to twist it. So this creates the bottom of the lamp, all the wires that hold the lamp up. Really need another pair of tweezers out here, because another pair of pliers, because I probably shouldn't have been doing that with my little tweezers. So we're just going to bend it into the shape that we want. And it's something that I'll have to come back to, because I'm going to let things dry. So we're going to do one more thing today, and this is create the leaf that goes around the trellis. So we need to find the template, which is up the top, and you're meant to cut the template out and then cut out your green bits of it. But what I ended up doing was just cutting out one of the, cutting the wire for it now. Just getting all my bits together. And then I cut out one of the leaves, because they're leaves, it really doesn't matter what shape they are. They don't have to be perfect. So I kind of cut out one and use that as a template to then draw around about 20 leaves. And I just kept going all the way along, and then stood there sat there and cut them out. Yet again, my green boat came in handy because I was able to cut them out and drop them into the green boat. So I find with cutting, it's better to cut the big chunk off and then just trim. So you've got the smallest bit to sort of trim off. You're not trying to manipulate a large piece of paper when you're doing such fine little things. And in the end, I kind of was following what I'd drawn on there, but I was just, I just got in the swing and a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and they were all slightly different shapes. Some were fatter than others, some were skinnier, some were pointier, but they're leaves. They don't have to be perfect. And it's what you make of things too. So I'll just keep going with this one here. And then I bend the wire to the rough shape of what it's going on to. And that's our trellis. So it was actually too long, and I ended up cutting off the bottom bit because I'm like, you don't need it. It's going too far. So I'm just using, I've still got the E6000 glue on the cupcake wrapper, patty pan, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just picking up with the tweezers and dipping it in. And you'll see what I mean about getting glue on your tweezers. It makes it harder and harder to pick things up. Well, not to pick things up, but to let things go. So yeah, just dip each leaf in, and normally with paper I'd use a different glue, but because we're sticking it directly onto wire, I'm going to keep going with the E6000 because that's going to hold it better on the wire than what the tacky glue or my paper glue would hold it. And I've got a little bit left on the patty pan, so, might as well use it up. I hate wasting the glue. That's why I prefer to tip out a little bit at a time and having to repeat that rather than one big blob. Because, I've got a child, things happen, doorbells ring, hubby comes home from work unexpected, and if you tip out quite a lot of glue, then you're wasting it because it'll dry by the time you get back and get disturbed. Life always happens. There's always things that happen in life, and as much as you might be planning, yep, I'm going to sit down for an hour and do a big, a session, things can pop up. So I'm just going to scrape what I can left off of the E6000 glue and put it around the frame and then stick the wire on. And this will hold it strong enough that it won't come off. And that's going to be all our building for today. So, oh no, we're going to finish the light. This is where I realized that it didn't actually go through the top. Pop the wire on, pop the top back. And that's what I mean about don't let things completely dry if you're not, 100% certain that that's exactly what it should look like in the end. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the end of this one too and stick it in so that it can sit and dry between now and when we actually need to attach it to the house. And it's just a little bit fiddly. So that's all our build for today. That's what we've created. I end up cutting the fabric out. I hope you've enjoyed watching this episode, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.